Hi, and welcome to the TeamSpeak iOS tutorial. In this tutorial, you'll learn how to use the TeamSpeak iOS client for iPad. You can use the pause and rewind buttons on this player to keep pace with the tutorial as you use the software. Okay, let's get started. So as you'll see here, I have my iPad open with the TeamSpeak client already installed on it. I've oriented it in landscape mode simply because I like the layout better. So as you can see here on the left-hand side, I have all of my menus visible, and then here on the right hand is where basically I'll connect to my server and I'll have all of my chat capabilities. So in this tutorial, we'll cover a number of features of the iOS version of TeamSpeak. We'll learn how to use bookmarks. We will learn how to connect to a server, go back, basically show the ability to connect to multiple servers, things like that. We'll show you how to switch channels. Some basic admin functions, including kicking a user from, through the iPad application. And then last, we'll show you how to import identities from your TeamSpeak 3 client on your desktop. Now, that's a really great feature because it allows you to bring over all of your permissions and server settings without having to re-enter them into the software. Okay, so we're going to start out here with bookmarks. So as you see here, I've got a bookmarks thing, and bookmarks allows you to quickly connect to servers without having to re-enter the same information. Again, very similar to functionality on the desktop client. So what I'm going to do is tap bookmarks. And as you see here, I already have a server that I've set up, and I'm going to tap on that. Now you'll notice that there's a lot of information here about the server. I'm actually going to go in and change a little bit of information here. So I'm going to change this IP address so that it actually connects to the right server, and I tap the save button when I'm done. But in order to connect, all I simply have to do is tap the connect to server. Now down here in the advanced, I have the ability to apply one or more identities. So if I tap that, you can see here that I have two identities set up on this iPad. Right now I'm going to tap default because that's the identity that I want to use for this server specifically. And then when I want to connect, I simply tap the connect to server. As you'll see here, there's connecting. And then now I'm located here in the lobby, which is the default channel. So from this screen, I've actually got a number of options that I can do. I can quickly jump to a different channel, and that's accomplished by tapping on a channel. So let's look at Battlefield Bad Company 2. So as you see here, there are lots of options available on this channel specifically. I can switch to it, and I simply do that by tapping it. So now, as you can see, my indicator has moved over to Battlefield Bad Company 2. I'm now on that channel, but I'm going to tap on that channel again. As you can see, there are other options here. I can create sub-channels. I can edit the channel. I can delete a channel. Now, some of these data elements here will only be available to you if you are a server administrator. So if I return back here by tapping the back button, you can see off to the right the little S, right? That's very similar to the icon that's used on the desktop client to indicate that I am logged in as a server administrator. So if I come back here and I want to edit the channel, I simply tap on edit, and another pop-up appears which shows me all of the information that I can change. So as you can see here, I can scroll down, I can change the miscellaneous, the channel type, whether it's encrypted, I can change a description or a topic. So for example, I might put a topic in here. And I say Battlefield 2. And I'm going to save that by tapping the save button. And then once I've done making changes, I simply save that here. And as you can see, it's then committed the savings to it. So here, if you look at topic, I now have Battlefield 2 listed. So I'm going to tap back to go back to the screen of my channels. So now I've shown you some very basic things that you can do on the iPad application, including connecting to a server via a bookmark, and doing some basic things with channels once connected. So obviously that's switching to a channel, or if you're a server admin, that's editing a channel. Obviously, if I tap here again, you'll see that I can create channels and I can create sub channels. Again, these are simply enabled by tapping to get the pop-up, filling in the necessary information, and tapping the save button up in the corner. So I'm going to return back here, and now let's talk a little bit about how to use more of the bookmarks functions. So I'm going to tap back here on bookmarks, And as you can see here, this is a long list, right? I could populate this with a lot of different servers. Now, much the way that the desktop client works, you can open up multiple server connections on the TeamSpeak for iPad. To do that, I would simply need to create another bookmark. That's accomplished by tapping this plus button here down in the corner. And as you see, there's now another pop-up that allows me to specify the information for that server. So the details are exactly the same as you find on the desktop client. I need an address. The label is optional. It simply would determine the name that's listed here for that specific server. There's a port number if that's needed, a nickname, a server password, and then of course there's this identity tab. So the identity allows you again to select which of the pre-loaded identities you want to apply to the server. We're going to cover that topic in just a second, but again, this is all about being able to connect quickly. So if you've imported your identities, then using them and having all those permissions means that you don't have to enter all that information again. Now, when I'm done with all of this, I simply would tap the Done button, and that would then list another bookmark here in the list. So now that we just kind of showed you what that bookmark functionality is, let's actually go ahead and add a bookmark, and I do that by tapping on the plus button. Now here, what we need to do is simply fill out the basic data points for our bookmark. So first is the address, and I'm going to type in the address of basically a public server. So that IP is 208.72.158.82. And I'm going to save that. Now here, the label, I'm just going to put other server. And again, I'm going to tap the save button. The port, I'm not going to enter a port here. My nickname, I'm going to keep the same. My server password, I don't have to do one because this is a public server. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and tap done. So as you see here, I now have two bookmarks listed. One is my original guild server. As you can see here, that's what I'm connected to on the right. But I'm also connected to the other server. As you can see here, I can come back to the server by returning the server button. So again, that's accessible through the bookmarks. But I can also return home. And as you see here now, this bottom part of this left-hand menu shows all of the servers to which I'm connected to. So I can tap easily between the two to jump back and forth. Of course, I can also disconnect all of them by tapping on the button here, at which time I return the application to its original state. So as the last part of this tutorial for the TeamSpeak iPad application, we're going to show you how to import an identity into the iPad client. So as we said before, this is a really great way to bring over all of your server settings. For example, if you have admin privileges for certain servers and things like that, you'll need to bring that over to the iPad application so that you have all of the same capabilities and permissions and all of the servers that you connect to. Now this starts with the TeamSpeak client on your computer. So what we need to do is we need to go into settings and identities. As you'll see here, we just have a default setup. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to export out by clicking on the export button here, and that will save it to our local desktop. Of course, there's a warning here about not sending this file to anybody. So we'll just click the yes button, and of course it will prompt us to save this, and we need to save this as a .ini file. So I'm going to save this as my TeamSpeak Identities.ini, and I'm actually going to save that onto my desktop so that I know where it is. And I click the save button. As we can see here, there's the file that's been saved. Now I'm going to click, I'm going to cancel out of this, and the next thing we need to do is we actually need to bring in that ini file into iTunes. TeamSpeak includes the ability for you to move files back and forth between iTunes and the application, which is, great if people are sharing screenshots and things like that with you. So there's a way to get them off of the iPad application and onto your computer through iTunes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump over to iTunes. So here we have iTunes, and I'm going to click on my device, my iPad, and I'm going to go into my Applications tab, my Apps tab up here at the top, and that will list all of my applications. And at the bottom of this screen, you'll see that there's apps that allow file sharing. So I'm going to scroll through here until I find TeamSpeak. As you can see, here's TeamSpeak. Now, right now, these are some log files. So again, this is a way for you to get information off of the TeamSpeak client from the iPad. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually add a file. So I click the Add button, and I come over to the desktop, and I go to my TeamSpeak Identities.ini file that I found, and I click the Open button. And as you can see here, it's now brought into the TeamSpeak documents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sync that, and after I sync it, we're going to return back to the iPad application, which I will then show you how to import that file that you've just shared with TeamSpeak so that you get all your identities over there. So as you just saw before, on our TeamSpeak 3 desktop client, we exported a single identity from the TeamSpeak 3 application, and we then synchronized that through iTunes to the iPad TeamSpeak application. So as you can see now, when we return to the application on the iPad, we have a pop-up that indicates that the identity has successfully been imported. You'll note here, though, that it says only one identity. That was because in the software, we only clicked on a single identity before we pushed the export button. If you wanted to import multiple identities at one time, you would simply click on the identity and then hold either the Control or Command key down, depending upon which computer you're using, or the Shift key to select them all, and then click the export button. Now, when you import that file, obviously this pop-up message would be different. It would tell you, imported X number of identities. So to get rid of this, we simply tap the OK button, and now our identity can be selected from our identities list here that we can access, again, via this left-hand menu and the Identities button. So the last thing that we want to talk about here before we close out this tutorial is actually just kicking a user from a server through the iPad application. So I'm going to go to my Bookmarks here, and I'm going to go to my first server, and I'm going to connect to that. And as you'll see here now, you'll notice that not only am I visible, but another user is visible as well. So in order to kick that user, I simply tap them, right? You'll notice here that I can open text chats with them, I can move them, I can do all sorts of things here, as well as get information about what server and channel groups they're in, as well as what info about them and about their, how they're currently connected to the server. To kick them, all I simply do is kick from server. I can type a message, and I can say, all full. I can tap OK, and now that user will be removed from the server. So they obviously will receive that message on their client, indicating that they have been kicked from the server and the reason for that removal as per the message I just typed. So that closes out this tutorial for TeamSpeak for iOS, and specifically here for the iPad. We hope you've enjoyed this, and we really think that the iPad application is fantastic. It's a great way to be mobile and yet still remain connected to all of your TeamSpeak servers. Obviously, you can do this from the iPhone as well as from the iPad, and TeamSpeak also supports an Android application that provides a lot of the same functionality. So again, thank you for taking your time, and happy chatting.